Callie Mae Pham. Tanya Fairley. Megan Ellis. Kelly Funk. Reese Isbell. Yolanda Jimenez.
Here.
Colette Kavanaugh.
Here.
Danielle Munoz.
Here. Oh, there you go.
Jacob Rostovsky.
Present.
Steve Weeks. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move on to our second item today, the petition for reinstatement hearing. I will now turn it over to our administrative law judge for the proceedings.
All right, thank you, President Pham, and welcome everyone. It's Danette Brown, and I am an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, assigned to hear this petition matter. We have a translator who is translating in Tagalog for the petitioner, Mr. Yamat. So I ask that if folks speak this morning, that they speak in short bursts so that Madam Translator is able to translate to Mr. Yamat. Okay, very good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the case. We are here this morning before the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology, Department of Consumer Affairs. This is the matter of the petition for reinstatement of Fryan Yamat. This is agency case number 100-2023-014-569 and OAH number 2023-051-014. And again, my name is Danette Brown, and I am the administrative law judge assigned to preside over this matter. Madam President has already established a quorum of the board. So for the record, a quorum of the board is present. May I take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General, please?
Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I'm here to assist the administrative law judge as well as the board in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the administrative law judge as well as the board has adequate information from which to make a decision today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dougherty. And the petitioner, Mr. Yamat, is present and is representing himself here this morning. All right, before this hearing, off the record, I explained the procedures in this matter to Mr. Yamat. So, Mr. Yamat, the board is concerned with hearing about your rehabilitation since your license was revoked. And as I explained previously, the Deputy Attorney General will first provide a brief orientation, in this matter. And she will introduce the documents into the record. After that, Mr. Yamat, you have the right to make a presentation under oath to explain why your petition for reinstatement should be granted. You may also call witnesses to testify on your own behalf. Of course, your witnesses would be subject to questioning by the board and Ms. Doherty. So again, the board is particularly concerned with your rehabilitation, which means any activities you may have engaged in after your license was revoked. The board has the petition packet before them, and they've had the opportunity to review it. So you don't have to repeat anything in the packet. Unless, of course, you want to emphasize something in the packet for the board. After the hearing, the board will go into closed session to deliberate. So you won't receive a decision today, but you will receive it either by email or in the mail at some point in the future. Mr. Yamat, do you have any questions? Any questions, Mr. Yamat, at this time?
Wala po sa ngayon, ma'am.
No question at this time, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Before we proceed, I'm going to put you under oath, Mr. Yamat, so we can just capture anything you say. So please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Doherty?
Thank you. I'd like to first start with the petition packet that's been marked as Exhibit 1 in this matter, which consists of the first attachment, which is the petition for reinstatement case summary, summarizing petitioner's license history. Following that, in attachment 2 is petitioner's petition packet, which was signed by petitioner March 12th of 2023, which generally consists of a letter from John Paul Pasalia, respondent's criminal defense attorney, a narrative statement from petitioner, petitioner's employment history, the San Mateo Superior Court conditions of probation and minute order in case number 16 NF 00544-7-1, a payment receipt for a payment toward board citation number 100-2018-013535, and a letter from Bill Tideman, LCSW, Director of Anger Management and Domestic Abuse Therapy Center, confirming respondent's enrollment in that program. Following that, in attachment 3, is a City of Daly City certified felony report for the arrest underlying respondent's December 20th, 2022 conviction. Following that, in attachment 4, is the final default decision and order in board case number 1002017022178, effective November 18th of 2019, and attached to that default decision order is the initial accusation in that matter. Following in attachment 5 is the license certification for petitioner. And attachment 6 is the hearing confirmation form and attached letter of explanation provided by petitioner. And lastly, in attachment 7 is the notice of hearing for today's petition hearing. We'd ask that the petition packet be admitted in its entirety for all purposes at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Dougherty. The documents will be admitted into evidence. What I think I'll do is I'll mark them as exhibits 1 through 7. So they are admitted into the record.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to provide a brief background of petitioner's license history to the board. On or about January 31st of 2012, the board issued establishment license number A277093 to petitioner, doing business as Brother Haircut Number 2. The establishment license expired on January 31st of 2018. On or about September 19 of 2008, the board issued barber license number B80381 to petitioner. Petitioner's barber license expired September 30th of 2017. On or about June 26, 2017, the board issued citation number 100201702 5842 to petitioner for violating the following code sections: 7348, 7349, and Regulation 965, Subdivision C. The board assessed an administrative penalty totaling $1,200. To date, petitioner has not complied with that citation. On or about February 20th of 2018, the board issued another citation to petitioner, number 1002018013535 to petitioner for violating the following code sections: 7348, 7349, and Regulations 965 Subdivision C and 979 Subdivision C and 981 Subdivision B and 988. The board assessed an administrative penalty totaling $1,900. As of April 6th of 2023, petitioner paid that citation in its entirety. On or about June 5th of 2018, the board issued citation number 1002018019690 to petitioner for violating the following code sections: 7317, 7348, 7349, Regulation 965 Subdivision C, and Regulation 979 Subdivision A and C. The board ordered an administrative penalty or fine in the amount of $2,100. To date, petitioner has not complied with that citation. He has paid only $500 and has an overdue balance of $1,600. On or about June 5th of 2019, the board filed an accusation seeking revocation of petitioner's establishment and barber license. The accusation alleged that petitioner violated Business and Profession Code Section 7317, employing a barber operating with an expired license. Section 7349, employing an unlicensed person to provide services requiring a license. Section 7404, failure to comply with requirements of the Barbering and Cosmetology Act. Section 7404, Subdivision D, failure to comply with the rules governing the regulation of establishments. And lastly, Section 7404, Subdivision G, obtaining or attempting to obtain practice by fraudulent misrepresentation. On October 18th of 2019, the decision effective November 18th of 2019, the board issued that default decision and order revoking petitioner's establishment license and barber's license. As part of this order, the board found that the actual costs for investigation and enforcement were $4,342.50. On December 20th of 2022, petitioner pled no contest to one count of felony domestic violence in violation of Penal Code Section 273.5 and child abuse in violation of Penal Code Section 27(3) subdivision AB, a misdemeanor. Petitioner was sentenced to 4-year probation and ordered to serve 180 days in county jail. This conviction was a result of petitioner's 2016 arrest for an incident where he assaulted his ex-wife in front of his children. Today, petitioner has an outstanding fines and cost amount owed to the board in the amount of $7,142.50. This amount consists of the outstanding fines in the citation matters as well as that default decision. On or around October 13th of 2022, petitioner filed a petition for reinstatement of his barber license. Because the burden is on petitioner, I have no further statements, but reserve the right to question petitioner today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dougherty. At this time, Mr. Yamat, you may testify and explain why you are here today.
Dito po ako para sabihin po yung
I am here because to say,
nandito ako 2016.
when I was here in 2016,
umuwi ako ng 2016. Umuwi ako ng Pilipinas 2016.
I went to the Philippines on 2016.
Tapos doon ako nag-stay ng 6 years.
I stayed there for 6 years. And then
Bumalik ako rito ng 2022.
I came back on 2022.
Tapos
And then
nagtrabaho ako sa gas station.
I work in the United States.
Valley parking sa grocery outlet.
Valet parking at grocery outlet.
Tapos yung tinawag ko yung barber license ko, sabi na revoke daw.
Because
hindi.
I tried to use my barber's license and I was told it was revoked.
Nanay ko hindi sinabi sa akin na
My mother did not tell me that
revoke yung lisensya ko.
my license was revoked.
Ginamit yung pangalan ko kaya na-revoke yung
Used my name, so it was revoked.
kaya nasira yung lisensya ko.
That's why my license became like that. It became damaged. I would like to
makapagtrabaho sana ng maayos.
I would hope to work properly.
Kailangan ko sana yung barber license para mabigyan
I
ko ng
need my
magandang
driver's license so I will be able to
suporta lahat ng mga anak ko.
make good support for all my children.
Bagong buhay. Makipag-start ng bagong buhay ulit.
New life, start a new life again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yamat.
Salamat, Mr. Yaman.
At this time, I will open it up for questioning by the individual board members. And so, okay. I was going to go down the line, but we'll just go ahead. That's okay. We can go ahead and do it like that.
We go down the line. That's
Okay.
good.
Okay. Very good.
Oh, okay. I'm ready. Yeah. I have a question. Can you state again what year you went to the Philippines and what year you came back to the United States?
Anong taong ka pumunta sa Pilipinas at kailan ka bumalik sa Amerika?
2016,
2016 and then
2022.
2022.
So if you weren't here at all between 2016 and 2022, how were you fined in 2017, 2018 twice, and then, or sorry, 3 times? How were you fined if you weren't
Ano ka naman
physically
tahan?
here?
Kung wala ka naman dito ng mga pet.
Kasi yung nanay ko, meron
Because
siyang,
my mother,
meron siyang balbero na, meron siyang balbero na walang lise, na ano,
she
tatrabaho
had
siya sa
a
shop.
barber without a license, then had this barber magtrabaho,
Pinagtatrabaho niya sa shop.
work at the shop.
So it wasn't your fault, it was your mother's fault.
Hindi mo kasalanan to, yung nanay mo to. Ibig mo
Yeah,
sabihin?
yes.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, ginamit
Okay,
niya
thank you.
ang alam.
Oh, sige, salamat. My name was used.
Thank you. What did you do for income in the Philippines? Have you been staying up to date with barbering?
Nagugupit po ako doon sa Pilipinas.
I cut hair there in the Philippines.
With a license?
Meron
Do
kang
they
lisensya?
license?
Ay,
Please repeat the question, ma'am.
With a license? Did you become licensed as a barber in the Philippines?
Kung ba sa Pilipinas, meron ka ba lisensya bilang barbero?
hindi po kailangan.
It's not needed there. As long as you know how.
Testing, okay. We're back in business. Member Ellis?
Thank you. Have you stayed up to date on current practices with barbering in California?
Ayun. Pangkasunod. Yes, ma'am.
Have you taken remedial education, or how have you stayed up to date?
I'm sorry, please repeat that.
How have you stayed up to date on current practices?
Because I also do in the Philippines what I also do here.
All right, and my last question, for clarification, did you say that someone was using your license while you were in the Philippines?
Yes, ma'am.
How did they get your license?
Gamit po ng nanay ko.
From the shop, my mom used it.
Thank you. No further questions.
Member Weeks?
I have a couple of questions. First, proof of rehabilitation is very important to this board. Your original offenses that brought this on, over about a 1.5-year period, you were cited for
Lahat ng taon.
employing unlicensed persons 4 times.
Kaway natikitan.
How do we know that during this short period where you were already cited is not an indication of what could happen if you were to get your license back?
Mr. Interpreter, please repeat that, sir. Please repeat the question.
Oh, yeah. How do we know that if you were to get your license back, since you have a very strong history of employing unlicensed persons, that that would not occur again?
Mangyari ito muli. Please repeat that.
How do we know that? How do we know that you would not employ unlicensed people again were you to get your license back?
Taong walang lisensya. Ay, bigay lisensya sa'yo.
Mangangako po ako. Magre-report po ako.
I promise that I will report.
Okay. In your packet that you gave us, you stated that you're working full-time right now. But you also stated that your mother owns a barber shop, and you also assist her and Ray the barber with tasks or needs when you're not at your airport job.
Mr. Interpreter, I didn't get the whole question. Sorry, sir.
Yeah, you state that you assist your mother in her barber shop
Tinutulungan mo yung nanay mo sa barberya niya.
with tasks or needs when you're not at your airport job.
Pag wala ka dun sa trabaho mo sa airport.
My question is,
Tanong ko ay,
what are those tasks that you're performing?
cleaning,
You work with any,
that's all.
excuse me?
Cleaning, that's all.
You're not working with customers in any way?
Ka ba nagtatrabaho kasama ng mga customer kahit sa anong paraan?
Hindi po.
No, sir.
You also appear to have owe the board about $7,000 in past fines. Knowing that you were coming to this hearing today
Pupunta ka ngayon sa pagdinig ngayong araw na to.
and wanting your license back,
Pagkuha mo yung lisensya.
have you made any payments,
Ano mang
even minimal payments, on this amount of money recently?
kailangan mo bayaran?
Kaya may... Bayad ako ng 1,900.
I paid
1,900.
1,900. That's all.
When did you pay that?
Kailan mo binayaran yan? Kumpletuhin mo. April 6, 2023.
Okay. I have no more questions.
All right, thank you, Member Weeks. President Pham?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Yamat, is it correct that you applied for an establishment license for Brothers Haircut number 2?
Please repeat that.
Did you apply for an establishment license for Brothers Haircut number 2?
Brothers? No, ma'am.
It's stated here that there was an establishment license for Brothers Haircut number 2. That's in the materials. Was that your salon or your barbershop?
Sa nanay mo o sarado na
Ay,
yun?
yeah, sa akin po, sa akin. Ayan po yung ginamit ko dati.
Oh yeah, that's mine, that's mine. That's what I used before.
Okay. Did you ever manage that barbershop?
Yes, ma'am.
Why did you state that your mother was managing that barbershop?
Iba po yung barbershop eh.
No, ma'am,
isang
because
brother 1, brother 2.
there were
Katabi lang.
two barbershops. There's brother 1 and brother 2. They're beside each other. Tapos, but
Umuwi ako-
then,
Yung umuwi ako ng Pilipinas,
when I went to the Philippines,
ginamit na ng nanay ko yung pangalan ko sa yung establishment na
my mom
Brothers.
used my name and the establishment name of brothers 2.
Can you clarify which shop was your shop? Is it 1 or 2?
sa akin, brothers 2.
Mine was brothers 2.
Brothers 2. Okay. And so you said that that was your shop, and before you left to the Philippines, you were running it?
Yes, yes.
And what plan did you make, or who started running it after you left?
Nanay ko.
Lakad nito nung umalis ka na. My mother,
So are you saying that all of these violations occurred under your mother's supervision?
Ibig mo ba sabihin lahat ng mga paglabag sa batas?
Opo.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you make any arrangements to transfer your establishment license before you left or to inform the board?
May ginawa ka bang... No, ma'am.
Did you understand that it was your responsibility to ensure that your establishment complied with all rules and regulations of the board?
Ihan mo ba na ikaw ang may... yung establishment po? Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand that's why the license was revoked because those rules were not followed, complied with?
Ako po kasi yung nandun. Wala pong citation na
No, because my mother was the one there. I did not receive any citation at all.
Do you understand that it was still your establishment license, and so you are responsible for what happened with that establishment?
Rin yung establishmentong yun at ikaw may tungkol responsibilidad sa anong Yes, ma'am.
Do you have anything to tell the board to give us some kind of assurance that you understand what your responsibilities are to the consumers and to the board?
opo. Tatanggap ng barbero ng walang lisensya.
Yes, ma'am. Do not accept barbers without a license.
If your license were to be reinstated, where do you plan on working?
Ano mo sa ka magtatrabaho?
Doon pa rin po sa shop po namin dati, ma'am.
The same place, our former shop.
And who's running that shop now?
Kapatid. Kapatid ko.
Lalaki babae.
Lalaki.
My brother, ma'am.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Salamat. Wala na akong tanong.
Thank you, President Pham. Vice President Fairley?
Mr. Pham, first let me say my condolences on the passing of your mother. Read your letter in here. My question to you is, are you currently working in the shop?
Ngayon ba nag-aatrabaho ko sa shop?
Hindi po sa parking valley niya po ako.
No, ma'am. I'm working at the parking valley.
Who currently holds the establishment license for Brothers 2?
So ngayon ang pahawak ng lisensya ng establishmento yung brothers to.
Sarado na po.
It's closed now.
It's currently closed?
Sa ngayon, sarado.
Sarado na po.
Yes, ma'am. Closed already.
Okay. And when did you return to the U.S.?
Umalik sa Amerika. 2022.
Do you know what month?
Alam mo ba kung anong buwan?
July.
July.
Thank you. No further questions.
Salamat. Wala na akong tanong. Salamat.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Next is Member Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no questions.
Wala akong tanong.
All right, thank you, Member Kavanaugh. Member Jimenez.
No questions.
Thank you. Member Munoz.
Okay. Hello, good morning. If you were to, I have two questions.
Tanong akong dalawa.
If you were to not have your license reinstated,
Pwede mabalik yung
what
lisensya
would you
sa'yo.
do for employment?
I'm sorry, what do you
If
do?
your license were to not be reinstated, what is your plan for employment?
Para ikaw magtrabaho.
rin po ako sa Parking Valley.
I would still be at the parking valley.
Next question.
Tanong ay,
If your license was to be reinstated,
pag binalik mo yung lisensya,
what would you do differently?
anong gagawin mong kakaiba na? Pag binigay yung lisensya mo.
Pagbubutihin ko po lalo at masuporta ng maayos ang mga anak ko.
I will do better in order to support my children.
What would that look like exactly? And this pertains to your license.
Yung sagot mong yun, kung patungkol sa lisensya mo, anong ibig mo sabihin doon? Nagdetalyado.
Para po ng makapagtrabaho ng maayos.
I would like to work properly.
Suporta ng maayos ang mga anak ko.
Ano?
Para masuporta ng maayos ang
To
mga
support my children properly.
What does working properly mean?
Anong ibig mo sabihin pag sinasabi mo ayusin ng trabaho mo?
mapagsimula ng panibagong buhay.
So that I can start a new life.
Okay, thank you.
Member Isbell?
Thank you. I have no questions.
All right, thank you. All right, let's bump it over to the Deputy Attorney General, Ms. Dougherty. Any questions on behalf of the people?
I do have a few, Your Honor. Thank you. Mr. Yamat, is it your testimony that you never received the accusation that the board filed against you?
Sinasabi mo ba kahit kailan hindi mo natanggap yung mga paratang na sinampa ng board laban sa'yo?
Hindi po.
No, ma'am.
And when you had your barbering and establishment license with the board, did you understand that it was your responsibility to keep your address up to date with the board?
Nung nakuha mo yung lisensya mo tsaka bilang barbero establishment parang responsibilidad mo, nasasabihin mo sa kanila kung saan yung pangsalukuyan ng tirahan?
Opo.
Yes, ma'am.
And how did you keep your address up to date with the board when you left the country in 2016?
Paano mo na sabi sa board na ito, Pilipinas noong 2016?
Ayaw ulit po.
Will you please repeat that?
How did you keep your address up to date with the board when you left the country in 2016?
Tumalas ka sa bansang ito noong taong 2016. Paano mo na ipaalam sa board na ito ang kasulukuyang mong tirahan?
Tumawag po ako.
I called.
When did you call?
April
Of what year?
2022.
2022.
2023.
Oh, 2023.
Okay, and did you do anything in 2016 to notify the board?
Meron ka bang ginawa noong taong 2016 para ipaalam sa board na ito?
Hindi ko kasi alam ano nangyari.
No, because I did not know what happened.
Hindi sinasabi sa akin ng magulang ko.
My parent was not telling me anything.
But in 2016, you had knowledge that you had a barber's license, correct?
Pero noong taong 2016, alam mo na meron kang lisensya bilang barbero.
Meron.
I know.
And you had knowledge that you had an establishment license under Brothers Haircut too, correct?
At inaamin mo rin na meron kang lisensya sa establishmento ng iyong sa Brothers 2. Tama ba yun? Yes.
And do you understand it was your responsibility to update the board of your current address and status?
Naintindihan mo ba na ikaw may responsibilidad na sabihin sa board na ito ang pangkasalukuyang mong tirahan?
Opo.
Yes, ma'am.
And at the time in 2016, did you understand that was your responsibility?
Noong taong 2016 na inaunawaan mo ba na responsibilidad mo gagawin mo?
Opo.
Yes, ma'am.
And you just chose not to update the board?
Ang ginawa mo, hindi mo pa rin sinabi sa board kahit alam mo.
Umuwi na ang Pilipinas, kaya hindi ko po nasabi.
Because I was
Biglaan po.
already going home to the Philippines at that time, so I was not able to inform. It was sudden. It was sudden.
Okay. And in the letter you wrote to the board, you stated that the reason you left suddenly to the Philippines is to get, because there was criminal charges against you. Is that correct?
Kriminal na kaso laban sa'yo. Tama ba yun?
Natakot po kasi ako eh.
Yes, ma'am. I was afraid.
And you knew when you left in 2016 that you were evading the criminal law system? Is that correct?
Nung umalis ka noong 2016 na iniiwasan mo ang pamamaraan ng katarungan dito. Tama ba yun?
Ulit po.
Will you please repeat that?
In 2016, when you left, you knew that there was criminal charges against you, correct?
Noong taong 2016, alam mo na merong kriminal na paratang laban sa'yo. Tama ba yun?
Opo.
Yes, ma'am.
And you still chose to leave the country?
Tapos ang pinili mo pa rin ay lumabas ng bansa?
Sinabi ako nung attorney niya, kunin ko na daw yung deal ng 10 years, sabi. Kaya natakot po ako.
10 years? Because the attorney told me to take the plea of 10 years. So, I was afraid.
And did you notify the criminal court you were fleeing the country?
Pinaalam mo ba sa hukumang pangkriminal na kaso na ikaw ay tatakbo lalabas ng bansa?
Hindi po, kasi po natakot po ako eh.
No, ma'am, because I grew afraid.
Okay. And when did you become aware that your license, your barbering license had been revoked?
Kailan mo nalaman na pinawalang saysay na lisensya mo sa pagiging barbero?
April 2023 po.
April 2023, ma'am.
And prior to April of 2023, your testimony is that you had no knowledge that your barber's license had been revoked.
Tama ba bago ng Abril 2023, wala mo kang alam na pinawalang saysay na lisensya mo bilang barbero? No, ma'am.
And as a barber, aren't you required to pay annual fees to renew that license?
Kailangan mo ba magbayad taon-taon ng bayad para mapagibago mo yung lisensya mo? Yes, ma'am.
And did you not check on that license to pay those fees from 2016 to 2023?
Hindi mo ba tiningnan yung mga pabayaran mo mula 2016 hanggang 2023?
Hindi ko po alam kasi wala po akong alam sa ganyan. Hindi ko, nagulat lang po, nagkaroon ako ng citation. Hindi ko po alam yung citation na yun.
I do not know because I do not know about it. I was just surprised that I have a citation. I did not know about it.
And do you now understand that a shop can't run with an expired license?
Ng isang barberya ay hindi paaling umandar pagpaso na ang kanilang lisensya?
Opo.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand that everyone that is employed in a shop needs to have a valid license to work within that shop?
Naintindihan mo ba na lahat na nagtatrabaho sa isang barberya ay kailangan may lisensya para sila ay magtrabaho sa shop na ito?
Opo.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand that it's solely your responsibility to keep the board up to date with all your current contact information?
At alam mo ba na ikaw ang may responsibilidad na sabihin sa board na ito kung yan yung tirahan at informasyon para ikaw ay makipag-ugnayan sila sa iyo?
Opo.
Yes, ma'am.
And I have a couple questions regarding your conviction.
Dalawang tanong sa iyo tungkol sa paghatol sa iyo sa batas.
You were convicted of a felony for domestic violence, is that correct?
Ikaw ay nahatulang may kasalanan sa dahas pantahanan, isang pinakamalaking paglabag sa batas Pilonia. Tama ba yun?
Opo.
Yes, ma'am.
And you were convicted of a misdemeanor for child abuse, is that correct?
At ikaw ay nahatulang may sala sa pag-aabuso sa bata, isang maliit na paglabag sa batas misdemeanor. Tama ba yun?
Child abuse po, hindi ko po alam.
Ano na?
Wala po silang evidence.
Child abuse, I do not know. They do not have evidence.
Can he tell me what he was convicted for?
Masasabi mo ba sa akin kung anong nahato sa'yo? Para saan ka nahatulang may sala?
Alam po sa may domestic violence.
Just the domestic violence.
Okay. And you're currently on criminal probation till 2026, is that correct?
Tama ba sa ngayon, ikaw ay nasa subok na paglaya hanggang 20-26? Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall in 2016 when the officers discussed the incident that led to your conviction, what you told them?
Naalala mo ba ang nangyari noong 2016, 2016? Yung mga sinabi mo sa pulis at naging dahilan at nahatulang kami kasalanan?
Opo.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall that you told them that you had choked your now ex-wife?
Naalala mo na sinabi mo na sinakal mo yung ngayon na dati mo ng asawa?
Opo.
Yes, ma'am.
And that wasn't the first time that you had injured her?
At hindi ito ang unang beses na nasaktan mo siya? Yes, ma'am.
And at the time of the 2016 incident that led to your conviction, your children were present, correct?
At nung nangyari yung incident ng 2016 kung saan ikaw ay na paratangan, nandun yung mga anak mo. Tama ba yun? No, ma'am.
Okay. And do you think you have an anger management issue?
Sir, please repeat that.
Do you think you have an anger management issue?
Palagay mo ba meron kang problema sa pamamahala ng galit mo?
Wala po, ma'am.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
And can you tell me and the board if someone was to complain or upset you, how you would handle that complaint?
Sabi mo nga sa akin, paliwanag mo nga sa akin, halimbawa, merong magreklamo. Anong gagawin mo pag merong magreklamo?
Opo, kakausapin ng mainahon. Sasabihin kung problema.
Talk calmly, ask what the problem is.
Para may ayos ulit.
So that it will be resolved again.
And you were asked earlier about continuing education. Have you taken any education in the field of barbering since coming back to the United States?
Kanina tinanong ka sa pag-aaral, pagpapatuloy ng pag-aaral sa pagiging barberya. Meron ka bang ginawang pag-aaral simula nang bumalik ka dito sa Amerika tungkol sa pagbaberya, pagiging barbero?
Wala po.
No, ma'am.
And when's the last time you worked as a barber in California, if you can remember?
Yan kung naalala mo kailan ka huling nagtrabaho bilang barbero dito sa California?
Alam po, 2016.
2016.
And when were you made aware of the citations that the board had issued against you?
Kailan mo nalaman yung mga ticket, citation na ibinigay ng board laban sa'yo?
Ito, yung April, tumawag ako.
Here, April, when I called.
And why did you not pay all the outstanding citations that were alleged, that are in your file?
Bakit hindi mo binayaran yung mga natitirang multa na nakalagay doon sa file mo?
Iniisip ko po,
Because
hindi ko po kasi kasalanan, pero ito lang po yung
I was
kaya ko pong
thinking,
bayaran. Wala pa pong
I
sapat
was
na
thinking it was
ipon.
not my fault, but then this was the only amount that I have to pay.
Wala pa akong sapat na ipon.
I did
Pag
not
meron
have
na,
sufficient savings, but if I have it,
babayaran ko na pag meron na.
I will pay for it when I have it.
And if your license was reinstated, would you be able to pay your outstanding costs to the board in the amount of $7,142.50?
Yung lisensya mo, babayaran mo ba yung mga natitira mo pang multa dito sa board at yung natitirang higit sa 7,000 at ilang sentimo na halaga?
Opo, magkano po yung total? Opo,
Yes, ma'am.
Magkano
I will find work again.
magkano po yung total lahat?
Nang, nang,
Yung total ng citation?
I will find a way to
Hindi, magkano lahat ang total ng citation?
this interpret correction. How much is the total fine?
The total fine and citations and the cost for prosecution and investigation is $7,142.50.
At lahat na halaga sa investigasyon sa kasong ito at pag-uusig ito 700, 100 at 4 na dolyar at 20 sentimo, 7,000,
Pwede ko
100.
pang bayaran konti-konti.
May I pay that by installment?
Kasi wala pa akong sapat na...
Because I do not have sufficient savings.
Nabayad pa ako ng child support.
I'm still paying for my child support.
And what assurances can you provide the board that you're not going to continue to evade the law, whether it's the board's laws and regulations or any other laws and regulations of the state of California?
Anong mabibigay mo na paniguro para sa board na ito na hindi ka liligtas sa anumang batas ng California o ng board?
Ulit po.
Please repeat that.
What assurances can you provide the board that you're not going to continue to show complete disregard for the law, whether it's the board's laws and regulations or any other laws within the state of California?
Ano mabibigay mong patunay sa board na hindi ka iiwas sa mga inuutos nito at mga batas ng board at ng estado ng California?
Susunod po ako sa
I will follow
bawat utos nila.
I will follow all the rules.
And what will you do to ensure that you follow the rules?
Anong gagawin mo para masiguro na susundin mo lahat ng utos dito?
At po ng mga bawal, hindi ko po gagawin.
All that's prohibited, I will not do it.
And then one last question.
Ulit yung tanong,
If you were to leave the country again, if your license was reinstated,
at binalik mo yung
what would you do before leaving the country?
anong gagawin mo bago ka umalis ng bansa?
Tatawag po ako.
I will call
Papaalam
and make it known
na uwi akong Pilipinas.
that I will be going to the Philippines.
And when you say call, the board?
Pag sinabi mong tawag, sino tatawagan mo? Yung board ba?
Yung number ng board, yes.
The number of the court, yes.
Number ng board,
The number of the, anong number?
department.
The board. Department of Consumer Affairs.
Your Honor, I have nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dougherty. Any other follow-up questions from any of the board members?
Sino man sa mga miyembro?
Hi, yes, I have a question. Let me see here. Okay, my first question is the letter stated on March 22nd said you completed 10 sessions out of 52 for domestic violence, I guess, therapy. How many have you completed in total since then?
Itong sulat dito, ang petsa, Marso 2020, na meron ka nang nagawa 10 doon sa 52 klase ng dahas pantahanan. Ilan na ngayon ang natapos mo simula nung sulat na yun?
26 session.
26 sessions.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question is, what's your responsibility in all of this?
Anong responsibilidad mo sa lahat ng ito?
Pagbubutihin ko at ayusin ko kung
I will
Pagiging
try
barbero.
to do well and
pagiging balbero.
work well as a barber. That's all.
That wasn't my question. My question was, what is your role or responsibility that led you up to this point right now? Like, where is your accountability? Because I've only heard that it's everyone else's fault. So I want to know how we're here today. What is your role in this?
Ang gusto kong malaman, kasi naririnig ko lang, ito'y kasalanan, sa mula sa iyo ay kasalanan to ng ibang tao. Ang gusto kong malaman ngayon, sa mga nangyari lahat dito, kaya ka naririto, anong ginampanan mo, anong dahilan na nagmula sa iyo at naririto ka ngayon?
Para po sa lisensya ko. Para makabalik ako sa pagiging balbero ko.
For my license to become a barber again.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Meron pa bang iba?
Doesn't look like it. All right, Ms. Doherty, anything further?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, very good. Mr. Yamat, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Meron ka bang gustong idagdag sa mga nangyayari dito?
Sana po. Salamat po.
No more, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. That concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The record is closed, and we are off the record. And I'll hand it over to President Pham.
Ibigay ko na kay President Pham.
Thank you, Your Honor. We will now enter into closed session, and the meeting will reconvene after we finish deliberations. Thank you. Okay, we are going to reconvene this meeting. So, good morning. Thank you again to everyone for joining us today. First, I'd like to recognize that the new license category of hairstylist became effective as of July 1st. So applicants can now apply to take the exam or apply for reciprocity. So thank you to Christy and the board staff and DCA for the tremendous work that went into establishing and implementing this new license category. We are excited and hope it reduces barriers to entry for those looking to specialize in hair. Second, I'd like to share that I gave birth to my first child a week after our last board meeting in April. So I want to thank Christy and the board staff and my fellow board members for their support in helping me continue my duties during this harrowing time. I think it's a wonderful example of the board and DCA's commitment to facilitating public engagement and representation, and I hope it inspires others to get involved and stay involved despite the many other demands on our time, because the support is there. So thank you for that, and I will now move on to our next item, board member updates. Are there any board members who would like to?
I just want to comment on one thing. And it's kind of a problem with people being too busy and putting too much in their lives, and they can obviously handle it. But someone that serves as president of the board, practicing law, teaching at a university, and now you've decided to have a baby, how do you do it? I mean, it's incredible, and congratulations, I'm sure for all of us. That's a huge thing.
Thank you very much. We will see. Maybe by the next board meeting, I will be a pile of dust, and Tanya
Well, you
is
don't look
more
sleep
than
deprived now.
capable of taking over. So we are in good hands either way. Thank you. Any other board member updates? All right. Okay, seeing none, let's move on to item number 5, discussion and possible approval of the April 17th, 2023 board meeting minutes. Are there any comments or changes to the April 17th, 2023 minutes?
I have one change or addition. Page 9, second paragraph, third sentence. It says, Mr. Isbell mentioned that there is a city in San Francisco for transgender healthcare. I think that means city office. So if we could add the word office. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Isbell. Are there any other changes or additions to the minutes? Okay. If there are none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Oh, with the noted edit. Okay. So moved by Member Weeks. Can we have a second? Oh, sorry. Yes, Member Jimenez? Page 2 says Harris. Okay, can we amend your motion, Steve, for the 2?
As amended.
Okay, thank you. And then can we have a second? Okay, a second from Member Jimenez. And before we take a vote, can we take public comment on this item? And before we open up for public comment, just some reminders about public comment. So to ensure that we get through our agenda and hear from everyone who wishes to speak, we will be limiting public comments to 2 minutes per comment. There will be an opportunity for public comment on each agenda item, and there will also be an opportunity for comments on items not on the agenda towards the end of the meeting. And as a reminder, to comply with open meeting requirements, board members are not able to respond directly to public comment, but we are all listening, and we encourage you to reach out to the board staff with any specific questions or concerns. So with that, can we please proceed to public comment? Okay. I am seeing none. Is that right? Okay. All right. So with that, let's close public comment. Can we get a roll call vote?
Callie Mae Pham,
Yes.
Tanya Fairley,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky,
Yes.
Steve Weeks.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 6, executive management reports. Christy?
All right, here we go. We will start with actually, I'd like to give a couple updates. One, I know our minutes are usually so good, and we have unfortunately lost our contractor that does our minutes. They have decided to no longer do business for that. So we are devastated. We're looking for someone else, but just be warned that next board meeting minutes might come from us. We'll try very hard, even though we read these 45 times and still didn't see Carrie's name wrong. I did want to take a quick second and just recognize some staff that we have here in the audience. We have our management team is with us. We do have a couple people off today, but we have Alex Torkelson, who you all know. Say hi. Alex is our Chief of Licensing and Admin, and then we have James Zimmerman, who's our Rockstar Chief of Licensing. Manager of licensing, they're not all chiefs. We have Denise, I didn't see her. Denise Murata is our enforcement manager, and then Tiffany Moore is oversight and fine and inspections. This team has been amazing and work all the time and keep our board functions moving. So I know you all think I do it by myself, but it's actually them. And with that, we're going to go right into our admin and operations report. So we have a couple new staff on within our admin unit. We have Mallory Switscapel and we have Jennifer Hooder, who both are brand new to the state. They are doing great. Mallory will be handling our budget and contracts? Just budgets, okay. And Jennifer comes to us and will be handling our regulations and legislation. She has a past experience in working at the Capitol, so we're super excited to have them both. We've listed some outreach that we have done. We also have another outreach report a little bit later in this report, so we'll go ahead and just keep moving on. Then we have our board budget. This budget is good through April 2023. The budget reports come out to us at a very slow rate, so at the next board meeting, we should have the full fiscal year budget. However, our budget is obviously is healthy, and we don't have any concerns. We're continuing to look at our fees. We have not completed the fiscal fee analysis at this time. It's very close to being done. It does preliminary looks at our re-examination fee will likely go down a little bit, but we're not seeing very many changes with any of the other fees, which is good. We're putting together a full report that we'll be providing.
Can I ask a question, Chris? On the budget, we're looking at our operating fund essentially, right, that this board sees every time.
Correct.
And does the board have any other funds other than this operating fund that we work with?
No.
This is our only fund?
This is it. And we're considered a special funded program. So there's special funds and there's general funds. All boards, or most boards at DCA are special funded, which means that we're supported by our licensing fees.
And on fiscal 24-25, you're showing that a loan from the general fund to the Barbering Cosmetology contingent fund is coming through at $25 million?
Yes. That's what it's planned for right now as a repayment.
And this is a payback of those funds that were taken X number of years ago?
Yes.
How many years ago was that?
Many.
Okay. And is it true that, because I was reading in another bill that has apparently already been passed, that more than $25 million has been appropriated from our funds?
Yes, from our fund alone.
And is the payback, if it happens, going to be at that $25 million a year level?
Yes. Mm-hmm. All right, moving on to page 5 is our licensing exams and disciplinary review committee report. We have unfortunately lost some licensing staff. We know that when we hire licensing staff, it's often entry level. It's often their first time in to the state. And sometimes when you get really lucky, you know they're not going to last. And we did have several staff who we got as much as we could out of them, but they were able to promote outside of our department, which is great for them and very well deserved, but not so great for us. Hiring is still an issue in the state, not only with our board, but we hear it from every other board and department we talk to. The hiring, the applicants just aren't coming in like they used to. So we do have some staffing issues in licensing. Priority is to refill these positions. It just takes a lot of time to do that. Our emails continue to be at a very high number. Yes.
I have a question. I know we talked about this before. Is there anything being done to remove some of those barriers that are keeping some of the candidates that could be qualified to apply from some of the state positions?
When it comes to like our licensing unit, there's really not a lot of barriers. It's an entry level position. You do have to take an exam that is entry level, and it's continuous, so they can take it any time. There's ways to lateral. They did just allow. We have kind of the first line of an analytical position, which is called a staff services analyst. They used to require a college degree. It no longer requires a college degree, but we're still not seeing an increase in the applications.
Thank you.
Is there like a flyer or something that's easy for us to post or share? Because I know a lot of us are in the field. Like I always joke, there's a lot of ways to be in the mental health field, not just the therapist, right? Even with the therapy degree, right? And so if there was something similar, like maybe someone wanted to be, in Barber or Cosmo, but they're like, I don't like doing it, but I want to still be in the field.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's like a flyer
Yeah,
or
I
something.
think there is, and we'll get that to everyone because we've been doing a lot of Meet the Employers, and Danielle hooked us up with Sac State. That's now gone out to Los Rios Community College District. So we've been doing, a lot of state jobs are here in Sacramento, but not always. There's, there are other boards that have field offices. We don't have field offices, but there are a lot of statewide state positions. And we've been doing the Meet the Employers, and so we have a whole PowerPoint that we provide and a whole spiel that we go through with students we've done Sac State several times. We've done American River College, which is a local community college, a couple of times, and then we've done all of our community college districts here. But we definitely should have something we should be able to provide.
If I'm correct, you said that for these positions, a bachelor's degree is not needed. So has there been thought of like going to places outside of educational institutions that, like maybe doing, Meet the Employers that I can't, my brain is not working right now, but like, I don't know, other events or things that are unrelated to school?
Yes, we've done some career days. We did Yolanda's school, local high school here. We've done some other high schools. We've also provided a lot of information to high schools for their career days, just as pamphlets to hand out.
One more thing. I wonder if going into beauty schools or letting people know at beauty schools that this is an option, because not to put you on the spot, Tiffany, right? But Tiffany is a licensed cosmetologist and now at the head of the inspections, which I think is amazing. So people, maybe they'll try their hand at hair and they're not too successful behind the chair, and so then they want to have another option, and working in this department would be awesome.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you.
We could do a Meet the Employer for schools. All right, moving on. Again, we have a high volume of emails. We usually spend one day, usually every other week, where we call it an email day, and everybody's doing emails. We don't get through all of them in that amount of time. It's been rough because we have to balance those emails with processing the applications. It's our licensing staff that process applications and answer emails. So we have a couple of staff that we have brought on just to do that. But now we're shorthanded on the other side of the processing applications, and those staff that we've brought on to answer emails have been also helping us process the applications. So that's something James and Alex and Jasmine, who's our other licensing manager, they work on every single day. They do a workload distribution every morning based on priorities and based on oldest dates. We try to keep things at the oldest dates.
I have a question. 1,000 pending emails a day our staff is looking at?
No, we usually have that many that we have left. At the end of the day, there's usually about 1,000 that we haven't got to.
I mean, that is outrageous. I mean, I understand why it's happening, but we've been talking about this phone room. How's that progressing? Are we in testing mode on the phone room?
That's part of the problem with the staffing that we just haven't been able to get. We hired 2 staff specifically to start that program, but then we lost other staff, so they're helping with processing applications.
Can we deal with a commercial operation that would run a phone room and do this, or is that too cumbersome?
We have we have a unit in DCA that answers the first call, that answers our 800 number. The problem is it's usually someone calling saying, I applied for my application 6 weeks ago and I need to know the status of it. And so that takes our staff's expertise, or if there was something missing on it, it takes our staff's expertise to be able to respond to those.
Well, I'm not saying, we're not taking a vote on the new resolution or anything, but I think it's the consistency of this entire board. Everyone feels that we should do a phone room and allocate funds towards a phone room, and probably that should be at least reflected in the minutes, that we're supportive, very, very supportive as a board behind this, right? And anyone have any? No? Okay, good, okay.
Well, that's where we're moving.
Okay, good. Good, good.
Right.
Yes.
Our goal is to have staff that would do just phones and emails.
I mean, the burden on existing staff has to be
It's rough.
incredible. So thank you for doing a good job and getting us through this staff until we get this
Yeah,
all
it's-
staffed up in a new section.
Like right now, our cite and fine unit is very caught up, so they're going to be helping with licensing. So, I mean, the staff we have is great. They juggle, they jump in when needed, but right now it's a lot of jumping.
Christy?
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you very much for your team. You do a lot. Are there any parts of those processes that can be accessed through, like if we implemented a software where they can check their or we might have one, but is there any of this part that can just be streamlined into some kind of software for the license?
No, that would take much more.
Okay.
If someone applies on Breeze, they can go back and check their status on Breeze, but when they see it's pending, they email the board. One of the things that's kind of unfortunate is a lot of people email the board with questions that can be found very easily on our website. So we have an automated response that we give. One, we tell people how behind we are because we want to let people know that you're not going to get a response for 8 days. So that's the first thing we say. And then we always tell people you might be able to find the answer to your question on our website. We give them the link, and then we put anything else out there that we change our automated response on a regular basis for where we are, what our timeframes are, so that it gives them that much information. But I mean, we get a lot of questions on how do I apply?
Something that I saw that seems to be working really well with the BBS is, and I know this takes more time, and I apologize for suggesting something that takes more people power, but they do a Facebook Live, and I don't know if you guys do it, but
We actually met with them to go over their Facebook Live.
Awesome.
And we just didn't think it was right for us. We think we are reaching people better with our Facebook posts. And then we're going to talk about also that we've done some town hall meetings. We're trying to increase our outreach to schools. One of the biggest issues that we've had is people that apply online are forgetting to hit the attach button when they attach their proof of training because they upload it. They hit the upload button, but they forget that it's a little misleading to have to also hit that attach button. So we've been trying to talk about that and sending out emails blasts, and that has gotten better. So I do think our email blasts, our communications out to schools we've increased that so much that I think that we think at this time that's worked better for us than the Facebook Live after meeting with BBS.
Christy, is there a way we can change the website so that when they upload it, it already goes?
We tried. Because it's not ours, it's departmental. And it's the same with name changes. You have to do the exact same thing with name changes. And when you look at, we have so many people in our industry that change their names. I mean, if you think about the number of licensees we have and the people that are changing their names for all kinds of reasons, we get hundreds of name changes a month, hundreds and hundreds. And half of them can do it perfectly correct and attach their documents, and half don't. So that creates a deficiency letter. So, I mean, a lot of people get it. I mean, we get a lot that are done correctly, but we just keep reminding every time I talk at a school, my first thing I always say is if there's one thing you remember from my talk is the attach button. Any other questions? All right. As Callie Mae said, we have implemented our hairstylist license. We have not gotten any applicants for that yet. There's only a small handful of schools that have even requested approval for the hairstylist license. And those went out maybe in May. So I don't expect to see that for the next couple of months. We'll start seeing people start trickling in for that exam. All right, page 6, we have our quarterly applications received. We have received more in this most recent quarter for this fiscal year. And then the next page, we do have our lovely exam pass rates. As we always know, we always have concerns with the pass rates. Since our last board meeting, we have met with the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary. I have actually provided them with a list of schools that we have are most concerned about, like historic, really low pass rates. Now, there's no set pass rate in anyone's laws or regulations, not for BPPE and not for us. There is a set pass rate for schools that are accredited. So I have also recently had a conversation with NACIS, who is one of the main accrediting agencies for this industry. And we're going to have a follow-up meeting. We are putting together information for them to look at some of the schools. I went back to 2016 and found 11 schools that were accredited that had low pass rates since 2016. And by low, I mean 50% or less. And some of them are pretty significant schools with a lot of candidates. So, and they're accredited. And if to be accredited, you're supposed to maintain a 70% pass rate. So I will have continued conversations with NACIS and with the Bureau, and hopefully I'll have more of an update on those talks at the next board meeting.
On that pass rate, is that 70% yearly or overall?
It's overall, but that's one of the things we're working on, is making sure we are all looking at the pass rate in the right way. So NACIS looks at pass rates by cohort. So it's basically based on when a student enrolls in school. And we just look at pass rates from when they take the exam. NACIS doesn't care how many times a student takes an exam as long as they pass, whereas we count every exam basically as a pass or a fail. So we're working on that also to try to figure out our data behind the scenes to figure out how to match it to see what it really is.
If I may, this is the first quarter where we have Chinese.
Yes.
And I really want to thank you so much, you and all the staff that worked on that. What I note from looking at all of these is the numbers of people who actually use the Chinese language. And it makes me, it amazes me that there was this whole population out there that was in need of this kind of translation, and we weren't necessarily paying attention to it before. And so I'm just so proud of you all for making this happen, because we're seeing hundreds and hundreds of people taking the exams and so forth in Chinese, and that just wasn't available before March. So thank you.
Yes, and we did have quite a few people contact us who had applied, and just they knew it was coming, so we let them wait, and then we changed that for them. So we had quite a few people that had applied previously, but then we allowed them to contact us and change it to Chinese. Even though they originally had applied under English, we held their applications and let them change it too, and I think that went over really well. And you'll see some of these lower numbers, and I think they're going to start growing. You know, it's hard to look at, like, the barber doesn't have a lot, but the cosmetologist certainly does. So it's going to be interesting to watch as that goes. Any other questions on this page? All right, so the next page, page 8, is something new that we have provided. And this is, we broke it down by attempts. So you'll see this first page is all barber examinations. And so if you look at the English section, Chinese, we didn't have a lot of barbers. So in the English section, you'll see how many people, the pass rate for the first-time test takers, second-time test takers, third-time test takers. So it's interesting. If you go down to Spanish, it's basically looking at the fourth-time test takers are up to 36%. So the highest passing rate is for Spanish is when they take it a fourth time, which we need to do something about.
Yes,
We're trying to do.
absolutely.
Do you think that has to do with like how it's translated, or what would your guess be on that?
I personally think it's education.
I think it would help to like identify, like we were mentioning this earlier, maybe teaching in Spanish and then taking the test in Spanish. Because there, also I think Spanish to English translation, you have to literally move different like subjects around to make sense. Like we might say something this way and then in Spanish we'd like to reverse it. So I know like that transition over to, in English, like, and especially in an exam, like it's really hard. So I'm in support of finding ways to have schools in Spanish.
So the issue is we have very limited authority over schools, as we've mentioned lots of times. And BPPE does approve schools to teach in different languages. We have no idea what schools teach in other languages. I know a few because of how much research I've done on those schools, but we don't have any authority over the language they teach. And I'm not positive of BPPE's authority. I know they approve them to teach in those languages, so there's a process they have to go through to approve them. But the questions are, there's two main textbook companies for this industry. Both those textbook companies provide Spanish textbooks as well as Vietnamese textbooks. I'm not 100% sure about Chinese. Do we know if they have Chinese? Do you know if Milady has Chinese? I'm not positive. But the issue is they're teaching, nobody's getting even the Spanish or the Vietnamese textbooks. They're using the English textbooks. And the instructors are translating as they're teaching through an English textbook. There's also been a huge increase, and something that we don't have any oversight over is distance education. So a lot of these schools have gone to distance education for a portion of their theory. And some of those schools are completely hands-off. They are putting them with a program on their computers, they're at home, and they're self-paced for their theory, which is not resulting in good pass scores. So I have also looked at that when I went through, I recently did some work on some barber schools and found out that the ones that are performing very poorly have been approved by distance education. So NACIS, the accrediting company, and the Bureau both approve distance education, but we don't. So again, it goes to, we look a lot at our pass-fail rates, but we don't have a lot of authority on anything that we can do. But of course, we're the ones who are asked by the legislature on the pass rates, and we just don't have the authority to do much in schools. I've met with some legislative staff. I was hoping to get some language through the legislature this year on at least getting us to be able to charge a fee for our school application, because we don't even get a fee for schools. We do everything for schools for free. So we have dedicated staff that is unfunded that could be helping in other areas of our board where we're falling short. So it's a terrible situation, to be honest, because we just don't have the authority to do things over schools that we need to be held accountable for pass rates.
Christy, also, thank you for breaking these numbers out by exam attempts. I mean, this is very interesting information. I have a question. Is there a statutory time between taking individual tests? So you could fail and 5 days later take the exam again?
So I will tell you that because we're short-staffed right now, we have our team that you're looking at processing applications, and Carrie and I have been kind of responsible for re-exams, and so we're completely current on people who are re-examining. One of the things is I wanted us to get completely current because I want to see if that will help somebody pass because they're taking it so quick. The problem is it's up to the candidate. So we can process their application. So if you fail today and you reapply tomorrow, you're going to be approved for your re-exam within 2 days after that. That's how quick we are in re-exams. But it's up to the candidate to determine when they contact the vendor and they might set their re-exam date for 6 months out. So it's up to them, but we are 100% current on our re-exams right now. And yes, I'm tooting my own horn because Carrie and I are doing it ourselves. But so we'll see if that helps. We're not usually real far behind on re-exams, but we're literally processing them as quick as they're coming in right now. So we're hoping that we might see something.
I have a question. I probably should know, but I'm still learning. So in order to take the exam, do you have to have gone through an accredited program?
It doesn't have to be accredited, but it has to be approved. So a school, even if it's a community college, community colleges and private schools are both approved by the board. The Bureau of Private Post-Secondary approves private colleges. And then we also, which you'll see in a couple pages, people can come from out of state who have gone to school in another state, and those credits could apply to make them qualify for the exam if it matches our curriculum, and same with out of country.
Okay, because I was just thinking, I think, was it Danielle that said about having more opportunities to like teach in Spanish or other languages? And then I'm like, but it's kind of a catch-22 because if a program wants to be accredited, it needs at least a 70% pass rate, which is obviously not happening here. So I'm just kind of throwing it out to like marinate on ways to sort of break down these barriers of schools having more. I mean, you don't need the accreditation, I hear, but more authenticity from the students wanting to go. So I'm just like trying to figure out where's the starting point there.
Right. All right, so on page 9, we have the same breakdown for cosmetology for the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth time. And then we have that for each of our license types. Any questions on any? All right, so if you go to page 13, we looked at this as a new chart we talked about at the last board meeting. Someone had asked when's our busy time of year? And we were like, oh no, we're busy all the time. Well, we actually are busier in June. We just didn't realize it. And we actually, it could be a couple different reasons why June is our busiest month. One, in state government, you have to finish everything out by June because it's the end of the fiscal year. So if there's applications that are waiting in our cashiering unit waiting to be processed, they will work overtime. They will do whatever they have to do because we have to close out the fiscal year. However, those numbers are a little high. We think that might add to it a little bit, but not 100%. So we're thinking maybe a lot of beauty schools and barbering schools are continuous enrollment, meaning you could start any day you want of schools. They don't tend to go on a traditional school year. But we do think some tend to end in the summer. So we think that's probably why we see June, those two combinations, being a little bit busier than the rest. All right, the next page is our written exam results. And this is our comparison of the schools versus the apprenticeship programs and versus out of country. You can see that our apprentice numbers continue to be low. Conversations are continuing to happen with not only our Department of Consumer Affairs, but also with the Division of Apprenticeship Standards. We did have another meeting with that group, and we provided the Division of Apprenticeship Standards with information on program sponsors that we have significant concerns over. And so we are waiting for a follow-up meeting to be scheduled for that to see what has been happening on their front for that. Because again, that's an area that we have very limited oversight. We are still working on our apprentice regulations, which we do think are going to help. but we still have a concern with the program sponsors who are charging way too much money and not providing education. All right, page 15 is that same data, but broken down by language. For apprentice programs first, page 16 is our school programs. And then starting on page 17 is where we get into our data for our licenses issued. You can see that we did issue more licenses in our last quarter than previous quarters. Our licenses issued for the last 5 years, so we are definitely up for fiscal year 21-22, and then 22-23 is just slightly lower than that. Don't pay attention to 2021. And then we have our full license population. And then we go into our disciplinary review committee statistics. So we held a very quick Sacramento DRC. Thank you guys for attending that. And you can see that we actually it's the lowest number of DRC pending cases we've ever had in my 19 years of being at this board. So, it's good for workload. I think it shows that our inspections program has really improved in talking more to our licensees, citing for things that are obvious to consumer harm, maybe not citing for an open cabinet of a clean towel that they can just tell them to close. So I think it goes to that. I think we're obviously seeing a lot of practice of medicine cases still coming through. And I believe coming up, we are having a meeting at the end of this month, and there will be several executive officers from other boards that are going to be getting together along with the department to talk about this overreaching, overlapping issue of med spas and specifically body slimming and what we're doing and what they can do and what we really should be doing, and trying to get a clear message on what we need to do to make sure that we're not citing people $1,000 for something that maybe needs to be looked at. Maybe we need to look at requesting statutory authority for people to be able to do that. A lot of other states are doing that as well. So I think it'll be a great discussion. It'll be the medical board, the nursing board, the licensed vocational nursing board, the dental board, all kinds of, I invited all the medical boards I could think of, and they all agreed to come and talk about this issue. So hopefully at the next board meeting, we'll have a good update on where we're going with that.
Thank you for that. That's really great news to hear.
All right, and that finishes our DRC. So moving on to page 22, we go into enforcement. We have several new staff in enforcement. We have 3 new analysts joining our team that will be handling cases. And then we also have 2, this is super exciting, special investigators that we have hired. So these 2, one is Christian Gutierrez, who some of you might recognize that name. He was previously one of our LA inspectors. And then we have John Barkley, who's come on as a special investigator. He actually worked for us several years ago, and we're lucky to have him back working with us as a special investigator. So these are brand new positions. This board has never had this classification before, and they're going to take on like a higher level of investigation. So for instance, if we get a consumer harm complaint, these people will be able to go meet with the consumer who's actually been harmed, interview them, go meet with the establishment, interview them, work with an expert to try to work up an actual case that we could take to, if needed, to the Deputy Attorney General's office. So it's a higher level of investigation. One of the biggest issues we have with complaints that we receive is a lot of people can't identify who provided the service. And so we're hoping they'll be able to really help with that, because they can go into this establishment, they can have conversations with it's just a different level of investigation as opposed to where the inspectors are looking for violations. The investigators will actually be more engaged in conversations with either the owners, licensees, and the consumers. So far, they've only been on board for a couple of weeks, but so far, we are super excited about the work that they've already done. So I think you'll be seeing the benefit of having these positions soon. And we have one more vacant position that we're advertising for in that classification to fill.
Thank you, Christy. This is exciting. Are they going to be involved in online investigation as well? Cases of practitioners advertising on Instagram, unlicensed activity, stuff like that?
Yes. We are actually going to be working with they're special investigators, so they're non-sworn. We have our Division of Investigation that is sworn peace officers, and we've been working with them on those type of cases. When we can't identify someone, they are able to take additional steps because they're sworn peace officers to try to identify those people. But they don't know this yet, but we're going to be setting up a meeting with them to try to go a little further into an investigation, because we really need to address the online Instagram people who are doing things not in accordance with the law.
And on that note, I just have to say to the board staff that the Instagram content and outreach has been awesome. It's been frequent, it's been informative, so good job, Natalie.
Thank you.
If we're going to that piece right now, I would echo that, because I was going to say when we got to the outreach, I was really impressed, especially with you, the API month and the Pride Month comments were just really beautiful Instagram. So thank you for the work on that.
Thank you. We're super proud of that too. Okay, so we do still have some vacancies in enforcement. They are a little closer to hiring staff than what we are in licensing. You'll see on page 23 that we still have some inspector vacancies. We have some potential candidates for some of those positions. So we never stop advertising until we find people, and hopefully we will get more candidates to apply for those positions. And then we go into our actual workload. So we're looking at probation. I forgot to introduce Justin. Is he still here?
No, he went back.
Oh, sorry. Justin is our new probation monitor, but he already left. He was here to handle the reinstatement case earlier. So we have 73 cases. Oops, I skipped a line. Sorry about that. We have 97 cases on probation. We currently have 73 cases pending at the Attorney General's office. We have 57 open cases on schools, and 47 of those were referred to the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary, which means that we saw something in that complaint that would fall under the Bureau. So it could be both.
So in the schools, it means that we basically have open investigations on 20% of the schools.
Well, we have several complaints against the same schools.
It could be the same school, yeah.
Maybe 15% of the schools.
I have a question, because I love true crime, and this is like piquing my interest with the investigation stuff. So if there's like an influencer, like Instagram person who's not licensed, and thus, like, let's say they're based out of California and they're doing all of these things like, oh, this hair, like I watch, for my own tips and tricks, right? Is like, and then like a consumer of California does that and then like burns their hair off. Would that fall under purview of unlicensed activity in California?
If they charge them a fee for that service.
So if they subscribe like to their Patreon?
They would have to pay for a service.
Okay.
They would have to touch a person
Okay. I was
for
like,
it to matter.
because you said the internet thing, and my wheels started spinning. I'm like, there's all these people doing all this stuff online, and then people are like damaging themselves, and they're paying a subscriber fee, and it's like, I could do that, but I wouldn't. No one's gonna take advice from me. Like, I burn all my hair off, but I'm just thinking, like, what is stopping people from doing that?
Not much right now. I mean, our biggest issue right now is lashes. Everyone's doing, and nails. Nails has gotten really popular to not be in a salon, to be in people's homes. Don't do it. All right. We've listed our extern chart below of how many schools are participating in the extern program and how many establishments. And then on page 24, we go into our complaint intake. We have, we're showing how many complaints we've received. This most recent quarter was definitely the highest quarter of the year of complaints received. And then we go into all of our statistics for the next few pages. Pretty standard enforcement statistics. When you get to page 28, we have our citations that are issued. Our inspectors are doing a great job out there. They are short-staffed, so they're covering lots of territories. If we have a consumer complaint in a vacant territory, our inspectors have been stepping up and traveling to those territories to get those done for us. So we're actually not even behind on, we allow 30 days for a directed inspection when there's a case open, and our inspectors are keeping up with that time frame as well. And then we have our request for payment notices and how many have been issued, our payment notices that have been sent out. And then our next page shows our payment plans and how many have been requested, what have been developed, how many have been paid in full, our total payment plans that are pending, and then the dollar amounts. All right, we will move on to outreach. We've done a lot of outreach lately. We have, as we mentioned earlier, we've done a Meet the Employer program. We've done that twice. I went and spoke at Citrus College. We had as a community college down south, and we had at least 100 students there for that event. It went great. I also spoke at the International Aesthetics, Cosmetic, and Spa Conference in Las Vegas. That was the first time I have been to a show outside of California, and it was gigantic. But we held a class, and that class involved, we kind of talked about the state of the industry for aesthetics, and there was quite a few California licensees there, so that was really good. We also have listed some of the new publications that we have put together. We have a current version of the Barber Cosmo update. We have a new flyer for consumers that we've posted. On the next page is all of our listserv emails. So those are all of our email blasts that we send out to the various different licensees or to all licensees. We have listed our upcoming outreach events. We'll be attending the BeautyCast Network Trade Show. That's a show targeted to students. And they're actually having two this year. There's one later in December as well. There's the NorCal Barber Expo in Pleasanton. There is the Face and Body and Nail Pro Show happening here in Sacramento. We've listed another career fair that we're doing at Encina High School, which is a local high school, and I couldn't say no because it's my alma mater. And also, I'll be speaking at the National Aesthetic Spa Network with Wendy, right? That's yours, right? With Wendy Cochran. I'll be speaking at that in Walnut Creek, right? What? Yes, in Walnut Creek. All right. And then we've held a couple town hall meetings. And they were two very different town hall meetings. On May 1st, we had a town hall meeting that was the most common violations. We had 898 people attend. It was shocking and overwhelming, and we were flustered. We were not prepared for it. But Carrie and I handled it. We just took turns. They were just flooding us with questions relating to everything having to do with the board. Exam questions, licensing questions, enforcement questions. It was all over the place. So we were taking their questions, and Carrie and I would spend 5 minutes and trade off answering these questions. And so we wanted to have more because we couldn't believe there was that many people that attended. So we had our another one, and we kind of made it just an overview about the board. And we thought, we did a presentation at the first one, and we went over some sight and find pictures that we have, like how to do things right, how to do things, what's wrong. And I don't know that that was really, I think people just wanted access to us. And so we thought, well, let's make it shorter the next time, and that'll give us more time for more access to us. But the second time, we did not have that many people. In fact, we only had about 100 people, right? It's not on here.
Yeah, it was.
So
about 100.
it didn't go as well. So we're going to take a month for a break, and then we're going to have another one in a month to see if that gets the people back online. So it went really well. They went great. They both went great. People were able to ask lots of questions, and we were able to answer a lot of questions. So if we can continue to do that, and we can continue to get that type of participation, I think it's going to be a game changer. And then we have included all of our social media outreach for you all. This is Natalie. She spends a lot of time on this, so she is our new social media expert, and you can see all that we have done.
I know we talked about it a minute ago, and I really do appreciate the work. The work is great. I also, and I think that it's great that we're on continual basis with social media. And I also am really excited that one of the Assembly members posted
Yes.
Something about us too. So that was pretty exciting with Assembly member Mike Fong posting about our work here. So that's really exciting. I'm glad to see us doing that type of outreach.
All right. Next, we have our SB 803 implementation plan. This is probably the last time you'll see this chart because really everything's falling into other areas. So obviously the hairstylist license has been implemented, so that will come off this. Our pre-apprentice training is, we are almost done with developing the contract for that. We will have to do regulations, so you're going to be seeing that coming through as a regulation package now. The school curriculum, that's just an update for you. That's all been implemented. But it was really, we were tracking that school curriculum from the schools that were going down to 1,000 hours and the number of curriculums that we were reviewing internally. The externs is I'm sorry.
So sorry, Chrissy, quick question. For the pre-apprentice training, will that be part of the FY 24-25 legislative packet, or are we trying to include it in this year's?
It'll be regulations.
Oh, regulations.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So the external language has already been approved and we're going to probably be seeing some changes on that, but it's going through the process. And then the fines, we're working now on the health and safety health and safety regulations that our Health and Safety Committee has recommended. We're cleaning those up. We're having a kickoff meeting with our reg counsel and our legal counsel, and then you'll be getting those back. Once we have that going is when we'll be able to take what the Health and Safety Committee did and basically ranked all of our fines and attach it into those new health and safety regulations. It's like we couldn't really update our health and safety fines without doing our requirements first. So those are kind of going to go hand in hand. Any questions? All right. Next is our strategic plan update. This is just every task that we're working on. I won't go through it for you separately, but it just to let our members know that we are working on our strategic plan. Each unit reports to Carrie and myself on a monthly basis on where they are on moving all of our objectives forward in our strategic plan. All right, now we're going to go to page 63. Whew. And this is our legislative update. So we did the legislative update a little different for this meeting. I hope you guys like it. We stole this from another board. We are lucky enough right now to have a person on loan to us from another board who has a lot of regulation and legislation experience. And she brought to us this idea, and I thought it was really great. It's a simplified report to you all on where we are on the legislation that we were tracking. So this wouldn't be the case if it was brand new legislation, because we would want to show you the full bill and talk to you about it in detail. But this is all stuff that we've already made positions on. So just to go through this, AB 1328 was the Cosmetology Licensure Compact. That bill blew through the Assembly side with not a single no vote. But in the Senate side, they wanted to talk a little more about it. So it has been made to a 2-year bill, which is better than a no. And there is going to likely be a hearing in the fall where I believe they'll want to talk to all boards or all get more input on compact licensing. There's a lot of compacts out there, and this would have been one of the first in occupational licensing. So it kind of sets a precedence for other compacts, and they're not always received good in other areas. So Senator Roth, who chairs the Business and Professions Committee, wanted to take a longer look at this to make sure that this is really the direction and get more information on how compacts actually work. So it's really positive that it wasn't a no. And there'll be a hearing sometime later this year where I would assume they would invite other boards in to talk about the idea of compact licensing as a whole and how compacts would benefit California. All right, SB 384, which is our bill on remedial education, has also been sailing through both houses. It's now on its way to the consent calendar for appropriations. So it's been positive through the entire process. So hopefully this gets to the governor's office soon. And then the other bills that we have been watching, the alcohol, SB 247, which is the alcohol and beverage bill that impacts the alcohol and beverage control. It's moving, that bill's continuing to move, it's in appropriations.
Christy, on SB 247, the ABC is not fighting this at all? They seem to be a proponent of this.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any opposition.
Good.
SB 451, which is the worker classification bill, is a 2-year bill. SB 544, which is the bill that would allow us to hold teleconferencing like we did during COVID. So that bill is continuing to move. There could be some amendments happening to that soon, but it is continuing to move, which is great because we like to do our committee meetings that way. So hopefully we hear, but it won't take place. I don't think there's an emergency. No, it won't. So it would be January of next year if that bill passes. And then lastly is SB 817, which redefines the hairstylist fee. Right now, when that legislation went into effect for the hairstylist license, it just said the fee shall be $50. But we needed the fee to say the license fee is $50 or not more than $50, but the application review and examination fee are the cost to the board. So right now, if a hairstylist applicant comes in, they're getting an exam for free. So that's selling through as well. And that is the legislative update.
Thank you so much, Christy, for that extensive report. Let's move on to public comment for this item. There's quite a few topics, but please. All right. 2 minutes.
Hi, thanks for coming today, everyone. Wendy Cochran, California Aesthetic Alliance. The town halls are like the dunk tank for Christy and Carrie, and they handle it with such grace, with softballs flying at their heads. And it does cause a little confusion. And hopefully we can swing back around and tighten up some of the misunderstandings of, what nanoinfusion is, what microchanneling is, and things like that, because the estheticians always have these questions. We have so many devices on the market, and they're brand new, and I know that they really hung them out with a lot of really crazy questions. So I really appreciate those. They were very wild. With the regard to social media, it's great to see the engagement. It's very positive, but hopefully we can tighten up and make sure that maybe we have some accurate information, maybe on some of the lash things. We're a little bit I look like I Googled it, and they were not quite up to what industry standard is. And I know lashing is a very, very hot topic that is very largely ignored by this board that really needs some work. But also the big topic was the devices not being able to use any devices on a lip. And that caused a lot of explosion, because we can use LED, we can use microcurrent, we can use these things. I think being more specific to the devices that are not legal for us to use would probably be the better thing to put out into the public. Because when they don't know and they see it on social media, they're now freaking out that they can't do an LED facial, and how am I going to cover the lips? And they kind of get all weirded out.
15 seconds.
Sunset is coming up. All online education is a failing proposition for a visual learning population. And if this board does anything,
2
you
minutes.
need to put all of your time and effort into supporting the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology having control of the schools.
Thank you for that. Okay, other public comments on this agenda item? I'm not seeing anything. Okay, so I propose we take a quick break, and then we can finish up the rest of the agenda when we come back. Let's say 5 minutes. Let's push through. All right, sounds good? 5 minutes. No, 5. Let's come back, everyone, and let's go on to agenda number 7, item number 7, overview of the aesthetic scope of practice. Christy?
All right, so this goes in line with giving an overview of our licensees. At our last meeting, we did electrology, so this time we wanted to do aesthetics. We have a lot of new members, so we just kind of want to do a deep dive into each of our license types to provide some additional information to our members. So this is about the aesthetics. So we've listed the scope of practice here, which aesthetics is giving facials, massaging, stimulating, exfoliating, cleansing, and beautifying the face, scalp, neck, hands, arms, feet, or legs. I won't read every word, but we kind of wanted to show you some of the services that estheticians may provide, which is not only facials, but they do extractions, they do light and superficial chemical peels, microdermabrasion. If you haven't had that, you don't know what you're missing. Waxing and sugaring, tweezing of hair, tinting eyelashes or eyebrows, perming eyelashes and eyebrows, eyebrow lamination. That's a super popular service right now. Makeup application, they use ultrasonic devices for skin cleansing, exfoliation, and product application, and then LED light therapy that does various different types of services. Some of the services that estheticians are not licensed to provide are medium grade or medical grade chemical peels, radio frequency, intense pulse light therapy, ultrasound, not to be confused with ultrasonic, injections, microneedling, fat reduction treatments, use of any type of laser, and skin tag or mole removal, which is one of the things we see very common in a lot of establishments. So the requirements for licensure is a 10th grade education, completion of a 600-hour course, and then, of course, passing the written examination. We currently have a little over 96,000 esthetician licenses. The aesthetics, as we've been talking about, is growing within the medical field. At the bottom of this, you can see this is where I've noted that we're hopefully going to be addressing that and meeting with all the other boards under DCA and coming up with a plan to better address these types of services. And then some of the harm that we see in aesthetics. Allergic reaction, blindness has occurred, chemical burns, contracting communicable diseases, infection, irritation, scarring, skin tears, soreness, and thermal burns. Waxing is still one of our most common consumer harm violations that we see. We have recently seen several skin burns on the face where somebody has used a product that probably was not intended for an esthetician to use. So it can be one of our most harmful license categories. So lots of consumer threat in that category, but then also lots of wonderful, wonderful services that you can get. So that's kind of just our spotlight on the esthetician program. And I'm sure if anyone has any questions about aesthetics, we do have our resident esthetician on our board here who could help if there's any questions.
Well, I will just start. This is exciting to see. And I love talking about microdermabrasion. Microdermabrasion it kind of seems like the old hat now, it's been around, what else you got, what else you got? But the truth is the effectiveness and the minimal risk to the vast majority is huge. It's unparalleled. So I do 5 microdermabrasion facials a day, 5 days a week for the last 15 years. My clients love it. Some of them, of course, want me to go into what I call gimmick type things, but science is where skincare is originated. And so we have to just stick to the things that we know are true and work and are minimal risk to the public. So microdermabrasion for me is my mainstay, and I'm just happy to highlight it. And I would like to communicate to any estheticians listening that you can build a really good business with a microdermabrasion facial clientele, because they're going to get the exfoliation they need, it's low risk, and then you help them with their home care. And the truth is that the other ones the risk doesn't always outweigh the benefit. And so I just stay in my lane. Anyway, that's what I have to say about microdermabrasion. Yay.
Also, Christy, maybe we could have this as a cheat sheet in front of all of our DRC meetings.
That's a great idea.
It'd be very helpful.
And we're also putting together, this will help with outreach, but Allison has actually been working on a document that really shows what you can do under each of your license types. And we're hoping to actually have that be like a handout that inspectors can hand out, or we can give to students or to you all. So in DRC, it would really help. So we're actually working on that as well.
Just one other thing is that I know this only says some of the services, but 2 notable services are on here are NanoPen, which is just barely piercing the surface. It's really a serum infusion device, but it just barely penetrates the surface. It is a nano tip, and then low-level microcurrent also allowed.
I was wondering what microblading falls under. Whose purview that falls under?
Yeah, that's not ours. It's permanent makeup.
I had a question about, I've seen it, it's a hydrolonic lip treatments. It's supposed to be like an alternative to lip injections. Is that something that
Practice of medicine.
Practice of medicine,
Yep.
Thank you.
We saw a big rush of the hyaluronic pen that is used for that, and it's starting to die down now, thankfully, that we're not seeing it as much. So there's a new tool every single day for aesthetics, so it's scary.
And the truth is, science just doesn't move that fast.
Right.
Focus on the things that we know work.
Right.
Thank you, Christy. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, can we take public comment?
Hi, Wendy Cochran, corneotherapist. I don't believe in microdermabrasion. So we all have different philosophies to things. Some people like using peels, some people like using devices and things like that too. But I think One of my favorite phrases, "To kill a mockingbird is what, now 63 years old." And one of my favorite phrases from that book is, "You never really understand a person until you consider things from their point of view, until you climb inside their skin and walk around in it." The board should go out and try these services and understand what we do, because what we do is very different than coming in and getting a haircut or getting a simple manicure procedure. We are often behind closed doors, and we have a lot of treatments, a lot of skincare systems, a lot of options that don't work for everyone, but you should probably try and engage and go out and have some of these services done if you haven't already. If I'm honest, the future of the aesthetics and the electrology industry, they don't belong with haircuts and manicures. We should have the opportunity, like many other states in the United States, to have the ability of having medical oversight so that we can collaborate and cooperate with medical professionals and have them as our bosses, not just as renters or people that are pushed out of scope of practice by these individuals, doctors that force us to do things that are out of our scope of practice, that jeopardize our licenses. I talk about it in my group of over 9,000
15
estheticians
seconds.
every single day. We need to look forward into the future and be collaborative and get medical supervision of BBC licensed types that do skincare.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to item number 8, discussion of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee's role and focus. Christy?
All right, so we wanted to bring this back to the board at the board's request. We have, at our last meeting, we established a standalone committee for diversity, inclusion, and equity, and we, many of the board members wanted to talk about kind of the purview and the direction of where this committee would go. And so we wanted to open this up to the board for any discussions on how you think this committee should progress. And we have included some handouts just from the California Department of Consumer Affairs. This is a very big goal for the department as well as our board internally. All of our staff has had DEI training. And I recently had a conversation with an individual who runs an organization that is called Hair Has No Gender. We met them at the trade show that we attended in Los Angeles. And they have a great program that they're working on talking about some of the differences in hair alone about it doesn't have to be male or female hair. It doesn't have to be, we, in California, I think we're a lot more advanced than other states. And this company comes from another state where they have, I think, a little stronger struggles. But it was a great conversation I had, and they would be willing to come talk to our committee as well. And so that was just one avenue that we looked at, just kind of about the LGBTQ community and some of the things that we could do as a board to maybe promote diversity in the industry. I recently talked to someone who had a salon that they set a separate section aside for their trans customers, so that they felt comfortable in the city that they were in, so that they could go somewhere where they knew they were welcome and get their services without being concerned about that. However, I think the diversity and the equity includes a lot more than just LGBTQ. We have a lot of interest, and we've been asked from some legislatures recently about textured hair and how textured hair is taught in schools, and that a student should be able to come out of school being able to cut all types of texture of hair. And that's probably not what's happening right now in some of our schools. So I think there's a way for us to start with schools and start trying to have our committee come up with a message of how we would want to approach this, And I think we could start with some of the schools. I'm sure most schools would be very receptive to this, but I just think we could encourage lots of different avenues to increase the diversity. I think we are very diverse on our board, and I think, are in a perfect position to kind of lead the charge in California. I think we could be the best.
I have a question. Because one of the things I do is teach DEI. I think what my underlying confusion is what is the directive of this? What data do we already have? Like when I'm looking at DEI, I'm looking at if we take our licensees, how we broken them down by categories. Like, do we know the difference of Hispanic, Blacks, Whites, Asians? Do we know LGBT? So before we start reaching out to those outside of that, I think, how can we find out what our DEI already consists of? Because what if there's no need? What if the LGBTQ community outweighs the traditional? I'm just throwing it out there, right? So, because I would be looking at you on that side, like, well, what's the purpose of this if you don't have the numbers already to say what our makeup of diversity is already?
I don't know if we certainly, I mean, we can do a survey. Will people respond? We don't know. It's not something that we could ever require someone to ask. We can certainly pull data based on our exams that we give in other languages, and we also track data based on language of interpreter. So people can ask, if we don't give that exam, you can ask for an interpreter. And we track all that language, but we're just talking about language access at that point.
Right, but I guess my question is, because it says, how can the board gain the trust of underrepresented communities? How do you know what they are?
I guess we don't, just based on California.
I think also, wouldn't the committee start to work on that?
Mm-hmm.
That's what the committee's for, is to have a dedicated group to start looking at all that, or create a plan.
Right.
Yeah, and starting maybe with our board first, and then bringing in consumers. I'd love to, invite people from the community.
Definitely.
Or, yeah, the licensees to be a part of this too. So I can see this benefiting at two levels: understanding ourselves more in the DEI world, and then bringing in feedback from the community.
Mm-hmm.
And bridging the two together. But I would think we'd have to start with the committee and then ask those questions there. Those are great questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to also add that I'd like to go back to the first question, which is, what is the committee's focus? And I don't want to leave out our own office and the employees within the larger department that we oversee. One of the things we're doing in San Francisco is we're working a great deal on the HR process and making sure that we are, that process is recruiting from all different types of communities, that it has the outreach and access to numerous communities, and that people, once they're hired, feel welcome and feel a part of the community of the office, and are able to utilize their full selves in bringing their skills to the office as well. So I really think that I echo the questions that Vice President Fraley mentioned related to who are our outreach outside, but I would also say internally as well. And I think that all starts with data, and the more data that we can find and determine. And I don't know the best ways to get that data, but that's something the committee can look into as ways to do that. And also, I don't know if we've worked with any other organizations in GARE, but the Government Association on Racial Equity is a national, local, and regional government group that, like San Francisco is part of it, and some other cities and counties around the country are part of it, where they delve into these questions of how do we get the data? What are the best ways to handle this situation? What's the latest in legal efforts and so forth? It may be useful for our group or department to look into ways that we can get best practices from other government agencies, and GARE is a good place to get that information.
Hello. As someone who is a DE&I, that's my day job. I think I agree with what everything is saying, and the very first step to something like this is assessing the need. But it's tricky because we have to be careful what we ask, because you don't want to. There's also the optics. 'Cause I love like what Ree said about like who are we hiring and being intentional, but then we also have to be careful that we're not doing things that look like we're just doing it to tick off a box for equity and inclusion, which I find a lot of the time it's like, great, we have a committee now, we're doing it. So I think we could spend, this conversation I think should be a much longer conversation than a board meeting, and should definitely be part of the committee. But ground one is starting from the bottom, figuring out what's already being done, who are we talking to. I love the idea of like who's taking these tests, who are being licensed. We talked about Spanish test taking, right? Is that a DE&I issue as well?
Right.
How do we engage? So the starting point is to figure out where the starting point is, and that's assessing. Like that's
Right.
literally assessment.
Okay, Chrissy, is that enough to at least?
Yeah,
get started?
I
Yeah.
think we'll move forward and set a committee date. We'll coordinate that and go from there and see what we come up with.
Do we expect the committee date to happen this year?
I would like it to,
Okay.
but it won't be next week.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other comments that anyone wanted to add? Great. Okay, thank you. All right, public comment on this item, number 8. Is it this one? That one?
Jamie Schrabeck, Precision Nails. In terms of building trust with communities, I know that as a licensee and a salon owner, I represent many other licensees as part of your board, and how I feel this would be useful to us as business owners and people who are interacting with the public is if you would educate us about the fact that we're not supposed to be charging different prices based on gender, that we need to make our spaces accessible to disabled people, and that we can't discriminate based on certain characteristics of people. So I would hope that in moving forward with this committee that you'd look at doing outreach around the existing laws that we already have, both federal and state, and how we could be better members of our community, our business communities, and making sure that we're not doing this in our own businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comments on this agenda item? Okay, thank you so much for this conversation. Obviously, this is a huge topic, and all we can do is kind of start at the very tip of the iceberg and just keep going. Thank you. So let's move on to item number 9, discussion and possible action regarding rulemaking proposals.
Okay, we have one rulemaking package that we will need the board to have a motion on, and the remaining are just an update. So we'll start with the big one. This is our SB 803 cleanup regulations. You have seen this package before. However, as we are going through the process, we have made some changes, both by staff finding things as well as our regulation council making recommendations. So before you, you have the entire package of the language as well as forms that are being updated. And then I'm going to kind of go over exactly what's what's changed from the last time you've seen it. One thing is we've decided to remove processing times. There actually was a government code that had been repealed, so we used to have processing times in our regulations. Most boards have been moving away from them. We have decided to follow suit and move away from those as well. We do post our processing times online. That was another bill that required us to do so. So that information is available and we do track it. Next, we change the definition of in good standing to make it be from valid. So that good standing means we changed it from being valid to current, active, and unrestricted. And this change is necessary for enforcement purposes. So that means that the licensee currently is paid in full and not subject to any disciplinary actions. We've also eliminated the pre-application fees because there's no more pre-application examination. We have also added language for the interpreter application form. We removed a duplicate certification requirement and are adding an additional consent question to Section A and to note in the instructions that recording consent. So that's person is giving their consent because interpreter exams are recorded. They're in a room where the exam vendor records that whole conversation or exam. We are also recommending some minor consistency and clarity changes throughout. One of the things we've done is we've removed gender pronouns. That is something that we've been required to do, and we were required to make all of our pronouns gender neutral, so we've been able to do that in this regulation package that we hadn't done the last time the board saw this package. So the action that is needed is a motion from the board, and we have the motion here. I will go ahead and state it, if that's okay.
Oh, yes, please.
Okay. All right, so the motion that we would like is to the board to move to rescind the board's prior January 23rd, 2023 motion and approve the proposed regulatory text and changes for Title 16, CCR sections 904, 909, 931, 932, 937, 962, 998, 928, 934, 950.1, 950.2, 950.3, and 950.4 as provided in the meeting materials at attachment 2. Direct staff to submit the text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business and Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review. And if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for hearing if requested. If no adverse comments are received during a 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulations at sections 904, 909, 931, 932, 937, 962, and repeal sections 928, 934, 950.1, 950.2, 950.3, 950.4, and 998 as noticed.
I so move.
Okay, thank you. Member Munoz, can we get a second?
I second.
Okay, Vice President Fairley seconds. Thank you so much. Okay, can we take public comment on this agenda item?
Jamie Schrabeck, Precision Nails. On page 8, section 937, we're talking about the licensing and operation of mobile units. And in light of our previous discussion about DEI, I find F poorly written. A ramp or lift shall be provided for access to the mobile unit if providing services for disabled individuals. So either it should be required that they have a ramp or a lift so that those individuals can be accommodated, But the fact that we're calling out disabled individuals and saying that it's an option to serve them or make it convenient for them to be in a mobile unit, I think is a place you could start. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, can we have a roll call vote?
Kelly May Pham,
Yes?
Tanya Fairley,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky,
Yes.
Steve Weeks.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And Chrissy, the other updates?
Yes. So the following regulation packages are currently being worked on by staff. That is the apprenticeship, the schools and externs, and the disciplinary guidelines. So those are moving through the process. And then we have our transfer of credit regulations that was submitted to the Office of Administrative Law on June 29, 2023. And the Office of Administrative Law has 30 working days to approve or deny those regulations. So hopefully we will have good news at our next meeting that we can mark one off our list. And that is it.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, 3? Page 3 of the memo?
Yes. Oh, are we more public comment?
So just real quickly on the issue that was previously raised, I'm sorry, nobody saw my hand up. But subdivision F is existing regulation, so the proposal is not to change it, correct? So this is existing. So I just wanted, for the record, explain that. The proposal doesn't actually cover that issue. So it's the law that she just quoted is existing. Any questions from the board members on that item?
So thank you for that clarification. That was a clarification about, on the public
The
comment.
SB 803 cleanup regulation proposal?
On page 8.
Right.
It was a comment about
Subdivision
item
F.
F, yeah.
On section 937.
Thank you. Any questions or follow-up regarding that clarification?
I just didn't catch your name.
Oh, sorry, Christy Shields, Regulations Counsel for the board. I don't know if you were at the meeting I went to last year when I introduced myself, but yes. So I help the board with the regulations proposals for anything that you're moving forward or contemplating. So thank you.
Thank you for all your help.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Okay, and with that, let's move on to item 10, public comment on items not on the agenda. So at this time, I invite public comment. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Alexander Kreiny, and I will introduce myself a little bit in a second. Madam President, I respectfully ask for a little bit more than 2 minutes of time. I believe the subject that I'm going to address the board is quite important, and I can, for the sake of time management, I typed everything that I want to say, and if the board believes that I'm not to the point or whatever I say is not really relevant, you can stop me at any time and dismiss me.
If you have copies and you want to provide it to the board,
Yeah, sure.
we can review
I
that.
prepared copies to all 10
But
of
to be
you.
fair to the other members of the public who have the same time limit, we're going to stick to the 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
But you're welcome to provide that.
Yeah,
written
certainly.
statement to
Then
the
I
board.
will have to do that abridged.
Okay.
My name is Alexander Kreiny, and I am the professional Ukrainian and Russian interpreter here in Sacramento. And I'm interpreting on various subjects and in various places. In 2003, I interpreted my first cosmetology exam, and I have been interpreting ever since. So I have interpreted for 6 candidates. This fall, I'm going to interpret for the 7th. I have 3 of them lined up, and I have declined services to 17 of them. You ask me why? Some of us in this room know why. There is this restriction of 2 years for the interpreters. And actually, it is Section 931 of Title 16 that precludes the interpreter to interpret more than once in 2 years. I'm here to challenge this restriction because I believe this is really unreasonable, ineffective, and for that reason,
15 seconds.
redundant. Many times I have asked many people in your organization, why do you have this restriction? The only answer I have heard is that to avoid coaching and cheating. I believe that
2 minutes.
Thank you for your comment. Again, please feel free to share your statement.
May I approach?
You can provide it to our staff. Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment on items not on the agenda? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so let's move on to item 11, suggestions for future agenda items. So we'll start with board members.
Yes, actually, I would like to agendize and learn more about this. This would be great. When I say this for notes, I mean the interpretation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that, Member Rostovsky. Any other suggestions from board members for other future agenda items? All right. I did hear Christy previously mention that we will be addressing, this came up in the last meeting about trends that we see in DRC. So that did not come up today for this meeting, but I hear that it will come up for the next meeting. So we look forward to that. And all right, and anything else from the board members? If not, I'm going to move to public comment for this item. All right, okay, so last opportunity. We're going to have public comment for suggestions for future agenda items. So, okay. I don't see any members of the public stepping up for this agenda item. So last call? No? All right. Okay, let's move to item number 12, adjournment. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation today. I don't want to hit the gavel. We don't need a motion, right? We never need it. Okay. All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.